What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ariel, and I'm a registered dietitian in the state of Florida. And we're going to be ranking the diets from God tier. This is going to be your best ranking to don't ever try this diet. There's absolutely no benefits to this. And who else better than a dietitian to let you know about diets? So, starting off with blue zones. What blue zones are, they're places in the world that have the best health markers and people tend to live a lot longer. So this will be like Okinawa, Japan, where they focus a lot of vegetables that they're consuming, and they usually have a not as a sedentary lifestyle, so a very active lifestyle. They walk a lot. Usually these places have good transportation. Greece as well, and Sardinia in Italy is also known to be a blue zone. And in Italy, a lot of olive oil is consumed. So you're going to get your polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats. These are known to increase your HDL or your good cholesterol. So with blue zones, you have to put it in God tier. If people are living longer and have good health markers, that essentially is the purpose of a good diet and nutrition plan. All right. Now, low carbs. So I like how low carbs and keto are differed because they are slightly different. Low carbs, they will help you lose weight because initially most weight will be water weight because with every gram of carbohydrate, you store water into it. So you will see a short-term weight loss. However, if you're in any sort of athletics like long distance running, sprinting, basketball, boxing, going on a low carb diet is not optimal for athletic performance. So it really depends what your goals are. But I also rate a diet by how sustainable it is for the long term. So I'll put it in Premier League. It's not the worst diet, but I know some people that they could commit to it long term. So you'll notice that nutrition is very individualized and what works for one person will not work for someone else. I'll put it in Premier League. All right. Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers, it's a program that most people that are usually over 40 and 50, it's a community which they, instead of count calories, they use it as points. Personally, I think it's a little outdated and they are not focusing more on education anymore. It's more of just collecting a membership and then getting weighed once a week, which is you could do it yourself. You don't need a whole community for it. But my mom does it, so I guess she has been somewhat adherent. I just think it's very outdated and there's much better and dietary patterns to follow. So don't ever. All right, so the Twinkie diet. So essentially, if you eat just Twinkies all the time, you could lose weight if you're in a calorie deficit. Although obviously you're not gonna get any micronutrients, vitamins, minerals. Acquire a lot of nutrition deficiencies, high refined sugar intake that you'll be taking in. Just don't ever. This is just for the LOLs. All right, fasting. So for weight loss, fasting, intermittent fasting and fasting are in two different categories. I guess this is like a whole day fast. If it's something that's very consistent, I don't think it will be that optimal. It will be good for doing it for one day to maybe let your GI rest if you have like a lot of GI distress. However, like doing this every single week or once a month, I don't think is that sustainable and could increase the likelihood that you develop eating disorders like rexia. Can't say the word. I'm just gonna put in instead of Premier League, I'm gonna put this as average. I don't play soccer like that. All right, fruit only. Just alone, these type of diets in my head, I'm thinking, why? What's the point of this? It's not sustainable long term. It might help you be in a calorie deficit, but anything that just excludes and is very exclusionary, and you're getting rid of a lot of food groups, it never really makes sense to me. With a fruit only diet, you're gonna be missing out on a lot of protein and a lot of other vitamins and minerals. I guess you could get your fats from avocados, but you're missing out on a lot of nutrients and you also won't be satiated and filled as much. So I'm going to put it at don't ever. Low fat diet. So if you have cardiac issues, like you've had a heart attack or you have like very high cholesterol, lowering your saturated fat intake will be good. But just going on a very low fat diet, I would not recommend that since it will damage your hormones, because basically fat is the building blocks to not only testosterone but estrogen, progesterone, many hormones. So going on a very low fat diet, I would not recommend, but lowering your saturated fat, so that will be in your fatty cuts of meats, It'll be in cheeses, whole milk. Lowering those fat sources, yes, is beneficial. And especially if you have already high blood pressure and atherosclerosis, I'll put it in Champions League. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Low fat. There we go. I don't like Champions League either. I'm gonna put it in sustainable Mediterranean diet. So this is gonna be a diet full of lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, grains like whole wheat, olive oil. This diet is mostly seen in Greece, in Spain, in Italy, and these people tend to have really good health markers. I wonder why. They also focus on walking a lot, and when they do drink, they drink red wine. And red wine has a compound called resveratrol, which helps with circulation. Obviously, don't drink a whole bottle to the face, just one glass every now and then, not every day. I'm gonna put this in God tier. This is one of the best diets to follow. And I never really recommend specific diets because I feel like your diet should not feel like a certain way of eating. It should be a lifestyle that you could adapt. But when people ask me for a certain type of diet to follow, the Mediterranean diet is one of the best to follow. Intuitive eating. So this sounds good in practicality, and a lot of hippie dietitians speak about intuitive eating. Yeah, just listen to your body and the signals. When your body asks you to eat, you nourish it. And it sounds all nice and dandy, but when people have disrupted hunger signaling and they feel hungry all the time, a morbidly obese person, they intuitively feel like eating all the time. I would not recommend this unless you're very in tune with your hunger signals, and usually you're very present to the moment. You don't live a very busy life. You mostly live a relaxed life and with not a lot of stress. Maybe this could work, but if you're trying to lose weight, intuitive eating, I would not recommend it. I'm gonna put it to won't feed your dog. All right, biggest losers. So these are morbidly obese people that just try to lose as much weight as fast as possible. So yes, you might see the initial weight loss, but going in that much of a starvation diet, you're kind of causing a trauma. And then as soon as they stop and get off the diet, because it's not something that they could sustain for a long period of time, they go back and start binge eating and even surpassing what weight they used to be at. Not that you can't lose a lot of weight at the beginning if you're morbidly obese. You could lose like 10 to 20 pounds and it won't really make a difference. But just huge weight losses and making it a game of who could lose the most weight fastest, I will say don't ever. Nope. All right. The potato diet. Where did all these diets come from? I really don't know much about this diet. If it involves just eating potatoes, just don't ever. I could really go into the science with all of these things, but common sense tells you that potato diet, meat only diet, all of these diets are very dumb. Well, now that we're talking about a meat only diet, so you're lacking in a bunch of fiber. You're having a very high intake of saturated fat. So that there's a lot of controversy in between meat intake and cardiac health, but most studies show that if you have a high intake of saturated fat and on a meat only diet, that's all you're going to be eating, it will increase your cholesterol in your body, so your serum cholesterol. So I'm going to put this in don't ever. High protein diet. High protein diet is great unless you have renal issues. So like any problems with your kidneys, acute kidney injury, chronic kidney disease. I would not recommend a high protein diet, but for the regular person trying to keep a decent weight and even lose weight, a high protein diet is amazing because when I say high protein, I'm also in my mind, I'm already assuming that you're consuming fruits and vegetables on the side, but protein is the most filling macronutrient, so it'll keep you the fullest longest. Plus, you need protein for good skin. Protein are the building blocks to collagen. It also helps with muscle recovery and muscle retention, so I'm going to put it in God tier. You'll find it's going to be very easy to lose weight when you're having a high protein diet. I could give you a bag of a pound's worth of chicken breasts and a pound's worth of Lay's, and eating the Lay's, you could eat that in one sitting, while as the pound of chicken breast, it'll take you a very long time to consume. All right, clean bulk. A clean bulk is for someone, we always talk about losing weight, but there's a lot of people that struggle to put on weight. If you're going on a clean bulk and just trying to eat very clean, no oils, chicken, broccoli, rice, just eating a lot of those meals, if you're trying to put on weight, it'll probably be pretty difficult. However, you could bulk cleanly using foods like avocados, all natural peanut butter, dates. Dates for 2 dates is 120 calories. You could gain a good amount of muscle because you're going over your calories. So when you're struggling to put on muscle, really the game you want to play is to try to include as many calories without filling yourself up. So also drinking a lot of liquids, liquid calories, protein shakes. So I'm gonna put this in sustainable if you do it correctly. All right, dirty bulk. If you're very underweight and you're at the point that you're malnourished, the health effects of being malnourished far surpass whatever negative health effects are from eating like quote unquote non-healthy foods. So if you're in that point and you need to get your weight up, I would dirty bulk, but let's face it, people that are malnourished, they're not calling it a dirty bulk. Usually it's when you're trying to gain muscle and you just eat. I actually did a dirty bulk because I wanted to gain muscle. When you don't take steroids and you're doing it naturally, after lifting 3 or 4 years, there's only a certain amount of muscle you're gonna put on. So when you're doing a dirty bulk, you're mostly gonna gain a lot of fat. And once you gain fat cells for a long period of time, you can't really get rid of them. They just shrink. So a dirty bulk was something that I regret that I did a year ago, and I'm still paying the repercussions of it now. I've lost a lot of the fat, but I regret doing that. So I'm gonna put it in don't ever do a dirty bulk. Unless you're someone that is very underweight and you struggle to put on muscle, you could include like a milkshake in between meals, like a double cheeseburger, obviously, if you're still getting your blood work and health in check. In those cases that you're very underweight, eating slightly quote unquote unhealthy foods would be beneficial for you. The majority of the population, I would say, don't ever. All right, shakes only. So I'd rather not. Shakes only, you're missing out on a lot of fiber. You're not gonna feel full. You will be missing out on some micronutrients. Just why? Do you not enjoy food? Unless you have like an injury that you just injured your jaw, or you have dysphagia, so trouble swallowing, you could do a shakes only diet. But still, I don't think we're talking about those people when we're talking about these situations. So I'd rather not. Meal prep companies. So this would be like Factor Meals, Trifecta Meals. These are good if you hate cooking, you can't stand it, and you buy everything out. Like you're always eating out all the time and you spend a lot of money and you absolutely detest cooking and have no one to cook for you. And also for athletes that they're just really focused on, let's say like a fight camp, or they're trying to get ready for something, any athletic competition, you could use meal prep companies to already not have to think about that and just focus on your training. I'll put it in God tier. Depending on the meal prep company, you could choose healthy meals. They may be a little bit higher in sodium, but if you're doing exercising and sweating all of that sodium out, I think will be the alternative of going out to eat. This will be a much better alternative. So I'll put it in God tier. Even though it's not something that you'll be sticking for a long period of time, I believe this is more for short periods of time that you really need to quote unquote lock in. All right, vegan. So I was vegan for 10 years and it is one of the best diets when it comes to micronutrient intake. You're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables. For protein, the bioavailability is not the same, like iron and zinc. However, you still could get zinc, B12, and iron from a lot of different sources like beans, chickpeas, and you could get B12 from nutritional yeast. Your diet has to be very planned out to make sure that you don't have any micronutrient deficiencies. And even with that, I found that I would not hit my protein targets most of the time. And when I want to eat out, vegan junk food is actually pretty not good for you. I would have the Impossible Whoppers at Burger King. So I'm gonna put it in. If it's a really good planned out vegan diet, I will put it in God tier. But I'm gonna put it in sustainable. I'm not one of these people that talk bad about the vegan diet, and especially for ethical reasons, I'll put it at sustainable. All right, high carb diet. So a high carb diet is great if you're an athlete, if you're doing a triathlon, if you're doing a marathon, if you're an MMA fighter, boxing. Honestly, it's high carbs, but it's not just carbs. I don't think if you're doing so for if you're an athlete, I'll put this in God tier. If you're sedentary and you work an office job, I would not recommend the high carb diet. So I'll put it in. It's because for one person, you see how a diet could be very individualized. It's God tier, and for another person, it's don't ever. So I'm gonna put it in the middle of the two and put it at average. A juice cleanse. So do the juice cleanse to like detox your body from all the junk that you put into it? No, just stop with these juice cleanses. Your liver works as a natural detoxer and cleanser. You're missing out on a lot of fiber, and just having juice for 2 to 3 days, I do not recommend it. Don't ever. Plus, do you know how long it takes to clean out a juicer? That machine and contraption is very annoying. Plus, you're getting rid of a lot of fiber from the fruit. Okay, low carbs was repeated twice. Maintenance is just maintenance calories. That means it's the amount of calories that you could use to maintain your weight. If you're happy with your weight, maintenance is very sustainable. If you're morbidly obese, I would not eat at maintenance. I would go in a calorie deficit. Intermittent fasting. So speaking about a calorie deficit, intermittent fasting is a pretty good tool to go under your calories, and you could use appetite suppressants like caffeine and sparkling water to guide you through your intermittent fast. And then it's good for weight loss because you're giving yourself a certain time window, and it's going to be pretty hard to overconsume on calories if you have less time to eat. If you're prone to eating disorders, I would not do intermittent fasting. And I know that intermittent fasting is usually in the studies, it shows that men respond better to it, that for women, it's not as optimal for their hormones. But if you're a woman watching this and it works for you, a lot of people speak bad about it, but I like intermittent fasting. Sometimes I really just don't feel like having breakfast. And really, if you break down the word breakfast, it just means break fast. So you're just breaking your fast at a different time. So I'll put it as sustainable. All right. UK Gov 800 calorie diet for diabetes. That is way too low calories. If this is something you're doing consistently, this is basically a starvation diet. In starvation diets, you're basically asking to rebound crazy because you're putting yourself through a trauma. So you might be able to eat 800 calories for 3, 4, or 5 days, even let's say even a month if you're very disciplined. But the longer you do it, the more that is basically like a slingshot, and you're pulling the string a lot further back. You end up gonna catapult and then binge eat. So I would not recommend it. All right, fat loss and muscle gain. So unless you're starting off at the gym and never lifted weights before, you could technically lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Usually to gain muscle, you need to be in what's called a calorie surplus. And to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So unless it's your first time working out, but I don't know how this is really a diet. Fat loss and muscle gain. I will say is when you do lose fat, you will naturally look more muscular because the fat under the muscle you'll get rid of that, and it'll show more of the shape of your muscle, making you look bigger. So this is not really a diet, so I'm not even gonna rate it. The diet you could adhere to, I'm gonna put this in God tier. I could give you the most perfect diet ever, but if you're not gonna stick to it, it's pointless. It's like having $1 million in the bank and you can't withdraw it. It's basically pointless. So obviously, if your diet consists of pizza and Twinkies, don't adhere to that diet. Try to make little tweaks until you could hit your weight goal and your body fat goal. All right, paleo is going to be similar to keto. I'd rather not. I think it's pretty outdated. And with keto, you will see fast weight loss because you're getting rid of a lot of glycogen. It's mostly going to be water weight, and water weight is not insignificant. It will make a difference in your physique, but it's not sustainable in the long run. And you're probably going to have a higher meat intake and a higher saturated fat intake, which could increase cholesterol. So I'd rather not. Again, if you tried various diets and that's what you could stick to, as you can see here, the diet that you could adhere to is God tier. And I'm going to leave the rest of these out. So hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you saw this whole video and have not subscribed, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps immensely. I'll see you guys in the next video.